Come on, at least wear a suit, you broke loser. Don't tell me you don't own one.
Daniel said to me with a loud laugh. The classmates I was reminiscing with also looked shocked. I do own a suit, I retorted, irritated by Daniel's words. I couldn't understand why I had to feel irritated in what was supposed to be a joyful place. Daniel has always looked down on me. It's about time I made him understand. I had made a certain decision. My name is Mike Jones. I'm 30 years old. As a child, due to my dad's job, we moved a lot. When I was in the 7th grade, my dad got transferred again, and we moved to the countryside.
Sorry for another transfer, but it looks like this will be the last one,
my dad told me cheerfully. Changing schools was a pain for me, being shy and introverted, but knowing it was the last time made me feel relieved. The middle school I transferred to was much smaller compared to my previous one, but all my classmates were kind, and I was excited for the new life ahead. However, there was one person who didn't think well of me. That was Daniel Rickley.
Hey, nerd. Stop just studying all the time.
Daniel would pick on me at every opportunity. I was just copying notes.
Shut up. Don't talk back. Especially when you don't even have a mom.
Daniel intimidated me by raising his voice. My mom passed away due to illness when I was little. I wish I could talk to her if possible. But that's impossible.
Hey Daniel, don't say things like that.
When I looked sad, my classmates often stood up for me. But that only seemed to make Daniel less amused, and his taunts continued until we graduated middle school. Whenever I scored well on tests, he'd accuse, "You must have cheated, right?" And when I, being in the track team, recorded a good time, he'd claim, "That's a false start, do it over." Daniel thoroughly disliked me. I spent my middle school years avoiding him. My turning point came during high school entrance exams. I heard rumors that Daniel was going to a different school out of state, so I intentionally chose a high school close to my middle school. I thought I'd be free from Daniel. That's all I was thinking. Just as I wished, we went to different high schools, and I no longer had to deal with Daniel. I felt an indescribable sense of relief. I made new friends in high school and enjoyed my life there. I joined the track team again and spent my after-school hours working up a good sweat together with my teammates. It was a truly fulfilling and fun time, unlike my middle school days. After enjoying my high school life, I got a job at a sewing factory right after graduating. Though I wanted to go to college, I didn't want to burden my dad, who raised me on his own, any further. My dad had said it was okay for me to go to college, but I turned down the offer and started working at the factory instead. The job I landed was at a sewing factory for an apparel company. It wasn't that I had any particular interest in clothes, but this factory was the only place willing to hire someone with just a high school diploma like me. Until I got this job, I had never even touched a sewing machine, much less knew anything about making clothes. However, my bosses and co-workers taught me everything kindly and so patiently. 5 years into the job, I had finally learned all the tasks in the factory.
Hey Mike, I can't get this right.
Oh, let me do it. I think you should do like this.
I see. You've been impressive lately. I need to work harder.
My senior coworker, Harper, said with a laugh. I, who didn't have any special qualities, had become knowledgeable in sewing. My colleagues depended on me. Life was fulfilling until that day. That day, something happened. I went to the factory as usual and was planning what to do on that day with Harper. Suddenly, the entrance got noisy. Is there something special happening today? I asked Harper. She also looked confused.
Our boss said, today there's supposed to be an important deal.
I turned my gaze towards the factory entrance. And there he was, Daniel, the last person I wanted to see. I rubbed my eyes and looked again, but it was definitely Daniel. Why is he here? I kept my head down and continued working quietly.
Thank you for coming all this way.
Well, it's an important deal, of course.
The boss was fawning over Daniel. Then, I could hear Daniel's voice getting closer to where I was. And when I finally looked up, Daniel was standing right in front of me, looking at me and laughing. He had found me. I had a bad feeling.
What? You're working here? I heard you started working right after high school, but in a factory. That's hilarious.
I ignored his words and kept working. Then, the boss, looking surprised, spoke to Daniel.
You know each other. Mike has been working hard and has become a vital part of this factory.
Daniel suddenly started laughing again.
This guy is a vital part. Back in middle school, he was a complete failure, always causing trouble for everyone. I can't believe it.
Daniel's words caused the boss's face to harden. Harper, who was working next to me, looked at Daniel with a puzzled expression.
A failure, you say?
Yes, really. Right, Mike?
Daniel suddenly turned to me. Annoyed, I said, I didn't cause trouble for anyone. Can't you stop spouting nonsense? Daniel's face became slightly angry.
I'm not spouting nonsense. You've been a failure since back then. How dare you talk back to me?
I was at a loss for words. Then, Daniel said something shocking.
Sir, if you want to do business with my company, you'll have to fire this guy. If he's here, I'm sure the company won't do well. He's a jinx.
Suddenly, the factory fell silent. My colleagues looked at Daniel with shocked faces. The boss took a deep breath and then said to Daniel, "Well, let's have some tea over there," and led him to the office. I couldn't understand what right he had to try and get me fired. Daniel has always been someone who tries to get his way in everything. As I sighed, Harper looked at me with concern.
Don't worry about what that person says. He's truly unpleasant.
Harper offered me kind words while we worked. He's always disliked me. He just wants to make me suffer this time too. Over the past 5 years, I've worked hard and sweated it out in this factory, and the boss knows it. Even if Daniel, the client representative, requested my firing, I was confident the boss would never let me go. However, that confidence was shattered. That evening, the boss asked me to come to his office. Having never been called by the boss before, I entered the office, puzzled. The boss seemed a bit down, and he began to speak.
Mike, I'm really sorry, but could you take a break from work until the deal with TA Corporation is finalized?
Excuse me. I couldn't believe my ears. I never expected to hear something like this from the boss. He continued.
You understand how important the contract with TA Corporation is to our company, right?
TA Corporation is a well-known company in the apparel industry, renowned to the point where nobody in this field hasn't heard of them. I remembered Harper mentioning that this deal could involve hundreds of millions of dollars. Yes.
Apparently, Daniel has taken a dislike to you. If that causes us to lose the contract, it would be a huge loss for the company. But I don't want to fire you because you've been working so hard. Could you just take a break for a while? I'd like to pretend to fire you.
All I could do was nod to the boss's desperate words. I couldn't understand why I, who hadn't done anything wrong, had to take a break from work. But for the sake of the boss and the company, I had no choice but to comply with his request. For a week, I stayed at home. I was unable to focus on anything. I hope the work I was responsible for is okay with Harper handling it. Then, Harper called me. There was some work she couldn't figure out. I tried to explain over the phone, but when I couldn't convey it well, I reluctantly headed to the factory. I sneaked into the factory and approached Harper.
Mike, I'm really sorry for bothering you during your time off.
Harper said in a quiet, apologetic voice. Making sure not to be seen by other coworkers, I quietly showed her how to do the work. She seemed to understand the work method and thanked me. As I was about to leave the factory without anyone noticing, an incident occurred. At the entrance was Daniel. He was looking surprised. Then, he raised his voice.
Why are you here? Weren't you fired?
Damn it. I involuntarily stepped back. Hearing his voice, the boss came out of his office. The boss was looking troubled.
Mike.
I just came back for something I forgot. I lied to Daniel on the spot. Then Daniel, scoffing at me and said, "See, you're bothering everyone. Bay's no place for a high school graduate like you to get employed anywhere. Get out of here if you understand." The boss nearby just silently watched, saying nothing. What have I done to Daniel? I was sick of Daniel's behavior. At that moment, something inside me snapped. Daniel, why do you always have to be against me? I haven't done anything to you. Unable to hold back any longer, I raised my voice. The factory co-workers looked at me with concern. Especially Harper, who seemed about to run over to me with a worried expression. Daniel, unfazed by my words, retorted, "I hate you because you haven't put in any effort at all. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked to get to where I am today? Meanwhile, you, with just a high school diploma, are breezing through an easy job. You think I haven't put in any effort? Give me a break. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked at this factory?" Daniel burst out laughing.
Anyone can work in a factory, can't they?
No matter how hard I try to talk to him, I can't get through. That's what I realized at that moment. It was just a waste of time to continue this conversation anymore. I took off the place. Even after I had left, Daniel continued to laugh looking at me. As I ran, I made a decision. A few days later, I called the boss and told him I was resigning. I thought I shouldn't cause any more trouble for the company because of my presence. The boss tried desperately to stop me, but my mind was made up. After that, I started job hunting, but it was frustrating not being able to find the next job right away. However, my father said, "You've worked hard until now. So it's okay to take a break. Life is long. A little rest won't hurt. Inspired by my father's words, I spent a year doing what I wanted. Having worked earnestly for 5 years, I had more than enough savings. I'll take my time finding the next job. When the time came, I smoothly landed my next job. Then, I began working hard again. 6 more years passed, and I was now 30. My job was going well and living peaceful days. One day, I arranged to meet Mason, a middle school classmate, at a cafe for the first time in a long while. Mason was my best friend during middle school. Since we went to the same high school, we were like best friends and occasionally met up to share updates after graduating. Now, Mason works for a multinational company, traveling all over the world. I was delighted when he wanted to meet.
Hey, long time no see.
Mason greeted me cheerfully. It's been 2 years since we last met before you went abroad. Reuniting with Mason brought back memories, and our conversation flowed.
Hey, why don't you come to the reunions?
He suddenly asked. I was puzzled by what he meant. A reunion.
Didn't you get an invitation about a month ago? This time, Daniel and I were organizing it, and Daniel said you wouldn't be attending the reunion.
It was news to me. I hadn't received any invitation. It seemed Daniel intentionally didn't send me one, not wanting me at the reunion. I didn't get any invitation. Daniel probably didn't send it to me on purpose, not wanting me to come. Mason was surprised by my words.
Is that so? I had thought you just didn't want to attend the reunion. He's the worst.
Mason said angrily while sipping his coffee. Daniel being unpleasant isn't just a recent thing, actually. I told Mason everything that had happened 6 years ago. He looked at me incredulously.
I'm at a loss for words that such a thing happened.
Yo, I figured, but I am who I am today because of him. So, I've let bygones be bygones. Indeed, Daniel was unpleasant, but thanks to him, I was able to grow stronger. Without him, I might have remained a person with little self-confidence and no particular quality forever. Over 6 years, I came to think this way.
What about the reunion? Daniel will be there too. Want to skip it?
Mason asked, considering my feelings. I laughed and said to Mason, since we're here, I'll attend. Mason smiled happily. Honestly, I was a bit afraid of meeting Daniel. He would probably just insult me again. But I am not the same person I was 6 years ago. I decided to attend the reunion with pride. After promising to meet at the reunion, we parted ways to go home. I was truly grateful to him. If I hadn't met him today, I would never have known about the reunion. Thinking of the classmates I would meet after a long time, I headed home. On the day of the reunion, I wore a new shirt. Seeing that, my dad asked me,
Aren't you going to wear a suit to the reunion? Isn't it at a 3-star hotel?
He looked at me worriedly. It was understandable for him to be concerned. A 3-star hotel as the venue meant I had to dress appropriately. But I didn't want to wear a suit on my day off. That's why I had prepared a shirt that was casual but suitable for a 3-star hotel for today. I'm going to attend in this outfit. It'll be fine. He still looked worried.
But that Daniel guy will be there. Right. Won't he make snide remarks again?
I had told him everything that happened 6 years ago. He still harbored resentment towards Daniel, seemingly holding a grudge. I reassured him, even if he makes snide remarks, it's okay, I don't care anymore, and smiled. Seeing my smile, Dad seemed reassured and didn't say anything more. I left the house looking forward to reuniting with my old classmates. I felt light on my feet. Entering the 3-star hotel, I was greeted by a grand chandelier and a glamorous atmosphere. Filled with anticipation, I made my way to the hotel's restaurant.
Mike, thanks for coming.
Mason ran over to me, looking happy. Hey, I'm so excited about today. I smiled naturally just by talking to him. We entered the restaurant. The restaurant was booked exclusively for the reunion, and a lavish spread of food was laid out. Even though the reunion hadn't officially started, many of my old classmates were already there, engaged in lively conversations. Seeing me, my classmates approached with cries of joy.
Mike, it's been since middle school graduation. It's so nostalgic.
My classmates approached me cheerfully. We were engaging in endless conversations about the silly and funny stories from our middle school days. Before I knew it, the reunion had started, and my classmates began to gather around one after another.
Daniel has really made something of himself, hasn't he?
A classmate suddenly started talking about Daniel. What's so great about him? I asked, genuinely curious. The classmate quickly started explaining.
He's apparently the sales manager at TA Corporation.
TA Corporation, as in that big company. Daniel was always smart, wasn't he? He's the most successful among us.
And he's even pushing forward deals with that major apparel manufacturer.
So, Daniel became a manager right after I left my previous job. Well, it's none of my business. As I was thinking this, the entrance to the restaurant became even noisier.
Oh, speak of the devil.
There stood Daniel. And he dressed in a fine suit. I involuntarily looked away. Daniel didn't know I was attending this reunion. In fact, he had intended not to invite me. I thought he would freak out if he found out I was here. I looked at Mason. In a low voice, Mason told me, "You haven't done anything wrong. Just stand tall and proud." Mason's words eased my mind a bit. I shouldn't care about Daniel at all. "Thanks, Mason," I said, and continued our conversation. But soon, Daniel spotted me and looked as if he had seen a ghost, probably not expecting me to be here. He raised his voice.
Why are you here? You weren't invited.
Daniel's face turned red with anger. Mason invited me to the reunion. If it's a middle school reunion, I have every right to attend, don't I? Daniel reacted immediately to my words.
I don't consider you my classmate. It's presumptuous of you to come to the reunion without my permission.
Hearing Daniel's words, the surrounding classmates began to murmur.
This is not the place for you.
Geez, how long will he keep insulting me before he's satisfied? I was utterly exhausted. So, you'll be satisfied if I leave? Daniel scoffed.
Yeah, that's right. Now get out of here. And that outfit, it's totally out of place here, isn't it?
I had managed to talk a bit with the classmates I wanted to, and thought it might be best to leave as he suggested. Then he added insultingly,
Wear a suit at least, you poor thing. Don't tell me you don't own one.
I was speechless. What is he even talking about? I do own a suit. I just didn't want to wear one on my day off. Daniel laughed even more at my words. I couldn't understand what was so funny.
Don't act all tough. You didn't have the money to buy a suit, did you? You never owned one in the first place, did you? Admit it, you're broke.
I was shocked by his rudeness. There was nothing more to talk about. I was about to leave the place, but he uttered words I couldn't forgive.
Hey, should I give you one of my old suits? It's more expensive than you could ever afford in your lifetime.
Although I was frustrated inside, I pretended to listen calmly.
If you want to wear suits like mine, try getting a job at a renowned company like I did. Though, that's impossible for someone incompetent like you.
I reached my breaking point. I couldn't understand why he had to go that far. Just as I was about to raise my voice, Mason shouted,
Mike doesn't need your hand-me-down suits.
I was shocked. Mason had always been gentle, and I had never seen him shout. That Mason was raising his voice for me. I was so surprised that I almost dropped my drink. Daniel, taken aback, glared at Mason.
Hand-me-downs. This suit is from KG Industries, the major suit manufacturer my company is about to deal with. Not something a poor person like Mike could easily afford.
Daniel, unfortunately, could you cancel that deal? The room seemed to go silent for a moment.
What?
Daniel acted as if he hadn't heard me. No helping it. I repeated the same words. I'm asking if you could cancel the deal between your company and mine. The room fell silent.
What are you talking about? My company has no deal with you.
Do you really not recognize my face? You know nothing, do you? I couldn't help but question Daniel, but he just laughed.
What's with that tone? You're Mike the incompetent, right? There's no other option.
I realized it was pointless to talk to Daniel and handed him my business card. Sorry for the late introduction. I'm Mike, the president of KG Industries. I mistakenly made a contract to create a collaborative product with your company, but I'd like it to be annulled.
What? President of KG Industries.
Daniel's face turned pale. Seeing Daniel's reaction, Mason said, That's why I told you he doesn't need your suit, he has plenty without yours, and burst into laughter. Yes, I am the president of the major suit manufacturer, KG Industries. Becoming president was triggered by the incident 6 years ago. After quitting my job, I struggled to find new work. Luckily, I had savings, so I decided to take it easy for a while and made a suit for my father on a whim. My father wore suits to work every day, and I wanted to make a stylish suit for him. The suit was quickly finished, and when I gave it to my father, he was delighted, making me feel proud. My father wore the suit I made to work the very next day. That evening, he asked me if I could make 2 more suits. Apparently, his colleagues wanted one after seeing my father's suit. Of course, I made suits for his colleagues too. Then the next day, someone else requested one. This cycle continued, and the demand for my suits grew. A month later, I was swamped with orders for dozens of suits. I was surprised that a suit I made on a whim became so popular. Seeing this, my father suggested, "Why don't you start a company?" Indeed, if I could manufacture suits in a factory, I could sell them immediately without making customers wait. Inspired, I decided to establish a company. Starting a business required a substantial amount of money, and I even took out loans, but the demand for my unique and stylish suits never ceased, and my company quickly grew. Just 6 years after founding my company, it went public and became a suit maker so famous that nobody didn't know who we were. One day, I got a direct call from the president of TA Corporation. He wanted to collaborate with my company to create a new product. Collaborating with a major apparel company like TA Corporation would only increase my company's fame. The president of TA Corporation was very enthusiastic, even saying he'd spare no expense for the collaboration. Memories of trouble with an employee from TA Corporation, Daniel, crossed my mind, but I decided to focus on a company and went ahead with the deal. However, knowing that Daniel was still an employee at TA Corporation, I started to feel I couldn't continue the deal. I didn't want anything to do with someone so disrespectful. When Daniel found out I was the president of KG Industries, he started apologizing to me, sweating bullets.
I had no idea you were the president. Please forgive me.
I ignored him and tried to leave the venue. He followed me and blocked my path.
Hey, I'm sorry. It was my fault.
It was too late for apologies. I sighed. It's too late. I won't forgive you. Then, Daniel shouted,
We're friends, aren't we? How can you be so cold? If the president finds out this deal fell through because of me, I'll be fired. Are you okay with that?
Daniel was acting arrogantly even then. I took out my smartphone and called someone. Daniel just watched, puzzled. Hello, I'm sorry, but let's cancel this deal.
What? What do you mean?
Your employee, Daniel's attitude is too much. I can't go through with the contract. The person I called was the president of TA Corporation. Knowing I was talking to the president, Daniel started to panic and fell to his knees.
What? I'll remove Daniel from the project. Please, reconsider.
No, I've made up my mind, I said and hung up the phone. Daniel realized it was futile and just sat there in silence. I looked down at him. I have one last question. Daniel stayed silent. But I continued. I needed to know. Why did you always look down on me? Didn't you think it was cruel, considering I never did anything to you? Daniel answered in a small voice. I was jealous. You succeeded at everything without any particular efforts, while I had to struggle. Only the person themselves knows how much effort and hardship they've gone through. It's terrible that you treated me so poorly because of that. Reflect on how much you've hurt me, I said and left the venue with Mason. Daniel seemed to be crying pitifully for a long time. Mason and I left the venue with clear faces. Finally, I could say what we wanted to Daniel. Mason, thanks. I thanked him, he was there for me. Mason smiled awkwardly and said, We're friends, aren't we? Of course, I do this much. Later, the president of TA Corporation and Daniel came to apologize to my company.
We're very sorry for the disrespectful behavior of our employee, Daniel. We'll reassign him to a regional office for reflection. Please forgive us.
The president apologized deeply next to Daniel. Daniel was also apologizing deeply.
I'm very sorry for my past actions and will make sure not to behave that way again.
I sighed and looked at my secretary, Harper. In a soft voice, she whispered, "He seems genuinely remorseful. Maybe it's okay to forgive him this time." Daniel was surprised by her presence.
You were there at that time.
Yes, when I started this company, I had invited Harper to join. Because I knew she would be a great support, and I wanted to work with her. Moreover, Harper and I had gotten married, becoming husband and wife.
My husband always appreciates your help.
Harper said, politely. Following that, the president of TA Corporation and I continued our discussion and decided to proceed with the deal. As the president said, Daniel was reassigned to a regional office and never appeared before me again. In his new position, he seemed to have changed his attitude completely, dedicating himself to his work. I hope he continues to live without causing trouble for others. The brand we co-developed with TA Corporation became a massive hit. We sold millions and generating millions of dollars in profit for my company. I realized that without Harper's words, none of this would have happened. I can't thank her enough. Moving forward, I plan to make this company even better and ensure Harper's happiness.
The groom suddenly picked up a plate full of food and hurled it onto the floor, causing the sauce to splatter dramatically across the carpet.
My bad. Slipped right out of my hand.
He was looking down at me and laughing heartily, announcing to everyone,
This buddy of mine sitting right here is a cleaner. He's used to handling messes, so let's leave it to him. Can you take care of this, Mr. Cleaner?
When I refused it, the bride stood in front of me, blocking my way.
My husband said, "You're the scum of society. Don't you dare talk back to an elite like that."
Then, my wife appeared out of nowhere and tapped the bride on the shoulder from behind. With a beaming smile, she declared,
"I'll ask my dad to erase the groom's seat at work."
Right after these words, the bride and groom were faced with a shocking reality, causing them to collapse to their knees. My name is Brian Smith, 26 years old. I lost my parents in an accident during my sophomore year of college. Drowning in grief, I dropped out of college and was despairing over life until someone's support helped me recover. Now, I'm working as a cleaner. I married Emily, a peer of mine, who graduated from a top university and worked at a major bank when I was 25. She was a corporate sales representative at her branch, known for her agility that matched any man's and her meticulous work that leveraged her femininity, steadily improving her sales record, and even being whispered about as a future female executive.
"I dream of working at the heart of the U.S. economy,"
she would say with sparkling eyes. During our dating days, I always wondered if someone like me, mismatched in education and job, could truly make her happy. But Emily would just laugh off such concerns. I still remember as if it was yesterday, the day she tearfully accepted my proposal. Even she had her weaknesses, though.
"Well, let's see."
Emily said so, staring at me from across the table as I ate. Emily had come home early from work for the first time and put her all into making dinner after watching a recipe video. The cream pasta she made, to be honest, wasn't great. The pasta was overcooked, the sauce was bland, and the broccoli was still hard. But for me, it wasn't about the taste. I was just happy that she tried so hard. Yay, it's delicious, I said, trying to eat as much as I could without her noticing. However, Emily propped her cheek in her hand with a disappointed look.
Ryan, your nose expands when you lie.
I instinctively covered my nose with my hand.
Why? I followed the recipe exactly.
I couldn't help but laugh as I watched her cradle her head in despair.
That's awful. Laughing at me.
Emily puffed up her cheeks and glared at me. Oh, I am sorry. I just thought you looked so cute. You're good at your job and manage everything so smoothly, but it seems like cooking is your only weak spot. She crossed her arms and looked at me sternly, as if analyzing herself after I said that.
You know, my parents are divorced, right? My mom took me in but was too busy with work and did not cook much. We mostly had takeout or ate out, so I was never interested in cooking. So, you see, it's all my dad's fault that I can't cook.
I looked at my pouting wife and asked her something I had always wondered about. Hey, have you ever seen your dad?
I met him once when I joined the bank. We talk on the phone a few times a year.
It's better to see him when you can. You never know when you might suddenly never get the chance again. I was reminiscing about my deceased parents.
Brian.
Emily said, I'll think about it. She placed her hand on mine on the table. That day, I was at work, tasked with cleaning the exterior walls of a certain office building. It had been a while since I was paired with Ken, a 45-year-old senior coworker. Ken was a senior cleaner, holding a cleaning technician certification. He was the person the president trusted the most. Our job for the day involved rope access work, performed by dangling from the roof. We call it swing work, since we sat on a swing-like setup to do the job. I'm not particularly afraid of heights, but the work was nerve-wracking since one mistake could lead to an accident.
Brian, remember to check the equipment. The president has specifically asked me to make sure you don't get into any accidents. We can't have Emily becoming a young widow.
Yes, sir. Taking Ken's words to heart, I carefully went about my tasks, one by one. After 5 hours of work, we had safely completed all our tasks. I was putting away the pylons and ropes we used to mark off the work area. Suddenly, someone called my name.
Brian?
Surprised, I turned around to find Tom Brown, who was in the same seminar as me in college. Oh, Tom! I exclaimed, surprised, and took off my helmet. Tom looked me up and down and sneered as he said,
Really? You dropped out of college to become a cleaner? That's pretty bad, man.
Tom had always been like this. He always judged people based on their appearance, job, and income. He decided how to interact with someone based on whether there was any benefit for him. I wasn't surprised, but he was still as unlikable as ever. What are you doing for work now? I asked him in disgust as I bundled the rope.
Me? Oh, nothing much, just a humble bank employee.
He said so, circling in front of me to straighten his suit collar and flaunt his company badge. I recognized that badge. That badge is the same as Emily's bank. Tom and Emily work at the same bank. I couldn't hide my dismay. Seeing my reaction, Tom smirked smugly. Yay, it's a tough job. I've got to go now. I wanted to leave quickly, fearing further interaction with him might negatively impact Emily's work. Then Tom said,
Oh, yeah, I'm getting married next month. A lot of old college friends will be there, so you should definitely come to the reception. Everyone will be thrilled.
I spat in disgust internally, as if I'd attend your wedding reception. However, I decided to keep my cool, especially since he's Emily's coworker. Given I didn't know the nature of Tom and Emily's relationship, it seemed wise to keep things amicable for now. Congratulations, I'd love to attend and celebrate, but… Tom was grinning at me. He was expecting me to be ashamed of my background and feel out of place at an elite wedding, giving him a reason to mock me in front of others over drinks. Fine, if that's how you want it, I'll proudly attend. There's nothing about my life I'm ashamed of. I had lost all semblance of calm. With a broad smile, I declared, Absolutely, I'd be delighted to attend your wedding reception. Upon hearing my words, Tom appeared surprisingly shocked, his eyes sparkling as he looked at me. It was the gaze of a hyena that had spotted its prey. He smirked, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. Perhaps he had concocted some sort of entertainment plan to make a fool of me in front of the elite group attending the reception.
I'm thrilled. I'll send you an invite soon,
Tom said before leaving the scene. I watched his back as he walked away, already filled with regret. Later, I received an invitation to Tom's wedding reception.
No way. Brian, you know Tom Brown.
In the evening, as I was preparing dinner in the kitchen, Emily came home and exclaimed upon seeing the invitation addressed to me on the table amidst the mail. We were in the same seminar during college. He works at the same bank as you, Emily, and do you know him?
Know him? He's my peer, and he transferred to our branch at the same time as me. We're working together in corporate sales now, so look.
Emily said, pulling out her own invitation from her bag to show me. Are we both going to the same wedding reception? Learning that Tom and Emily were in the same branch and handled the same corporate sales, I regretted even more having accepted the invitation.
The world is really small, huh? To think Tom is a friend of yours, Brian. From now on, no matter how much it irritates me, I'll try not to push him away and work on building a better relationship,
Emily said with a reflective tone while eating dinner. What do you mean by that? I was curious and asked.
Well, actually,
Emily then shared with me her experiences between her and Tom. Tom, also in corporate sales, had a habit of looking down on others because of their family background or education, often belittling his colleagues and juniors. This attitude disrupted team cohesion, worsened the workplace atmosphere, and negatively impacted the work of those belittled. Emily, having top sales performance and graduating from a prestigious university, was not looked down upon. However, he told her blatantly that, "You use women as weapons," and he envied her. Moreover, Tom was known to grant aggressive loans to clients to meet sales quotas, and he shouted, "Don't overstep your bounds as a woman," when Emily subtly cautioned him once.
I'm sorry to say this about your friend, but he's the worst. That's why I decided to stay away from him.
He's not my friend, I said, slamming down my fork, unable to hide my anger. I couldn't hide my anger at Emily's story.
But I thought you were close enough to be invited to his wedding.
It's fine. That guy has been rotten since our college days. It's better if we just keep our distance from now on. I'm sorry for making you feel uncomfortable. I said it as if spitting it out.
Why are you apologizing, Brian?
Emily laughed, looking at me curiously. I usually don't show negative emotions in front of Emily, so she seemed a bit surprised too. Yeah, you're right. I hurriedly put on a smile to cover up, but I couldn't hide my agitation. I couldn't stand Tom's frivolous behavior, mocking with women, without knowing how Emily comes home exhausted to the point of being a run-out rag after working late every day. Emily isn't the kind of person to use her femininity as a weapon. Her sincerity, straightforward in everything, is something I know better than anyone. I met Emily 3 years ago, while cleaning the floors of a certain building. That building, housing several large corporations, was a large one with contracts for regular cleaning, in addition to daily maintenance. That day was for cleaning the floors of shared areas, like lobbies and corridors. Since it was a weekday midday task, the lobby was divided in half with caution tape to ensure a walkable area, and the work was done using a specialized machine. The work was progressing smoothly, and the dirty floors were quickly regaining their shine. I love this moment of looking back. Just a little more, let's push through. I muttered to myself to get pumped up. Then, a young male employee from some company, returning from outside, happened by. The moment he passed by me, he carelessly threw the trash bag he was carrying onto the floor where the detergent had been applied.
Throw that away too,
the man said. I picked it up and looked inside. It was lunch left over from a convenience store and an empty coffee can, probably from a break in some park during his rounds. Hey, wait. I called out to the man's back, but the young man walked away without turning back. I was furious, but I didn't want to cause trouble and risk losing the cleaning contract for the building, so I decided to bear it and go back to work. At that moment, a woman snatched the trash bag from my hand and ran after the man.
Please wait,
she shouted, dashing after the young man. I watched in astonishment.
You should clean up your own trash. Even kindergartners know that.
The woman said that, thrusting the trash bag back at the man who was waiting for the elevator. Reluctantly, the man took it and got into the elevator. The woman then ran back to me, smiling, and said,
I was a track athlete when I was a student.
I was instantly captivated by her carefree smile. It was love at first sight for me. And then, fumblingly, we exchanged contact information. It was the first time in my life something like this had happened. This was my encounter with Emily. Emily, full of a sense of justice, could see things straight. My wife is not someone to be trifled with by scum like Tom. I was only worried about protecting Emily from any more discomfort caused by Ethan. Should I cancel our attendance to Tom's event even now? But canceling at this point might inconvenience the other party. Tom probably doesn't know we're married, so acting like strangers at the reception might be best. We married while you were at the previous branch, so your coworkers wouldn't know me either. That's what I told Emily. I didn't want to burden her with any more worries, especially since she's already going through a tough time.
Why? Why would you want to hide something like that?
Emily looked puzzled. It's understandable since she doesn't know the situation. It's just to avoid any trouble. That's okay, right? Seeing my serious face, Emily reluctantly agreed. On the day of the wedding, Tom's reception was held at a top hotel in New York, attended by 500 guests, a large-scale event. Tom's bride was a 23-year-old woman named Marissa, apparently the daughter of a wealthy family that owns a chain of restaurants. There were VIPs present, likely business associates of the bride's father, along with influential figures from the city. I was seated at a table for friends of the groom. Emily, sitting at a table for bank associates a bit away, was keeping our promise to act like strangers. As soon as I took my seat at a table for 8, I received cold stares from Tom's entourage. Then, they smirked at me while conspicuously updating each other about their recent activities. The names of major corporations like big securities companies, construction firms, and trading companies were mentioned in the conversation. Among them, a man named Clint, sitting next to me, struck up a conversation.
It's been a while, Brian. It's been 6 years since you left college, right? What are you doing now?
Clint was the only decent guy to talk to here. Rumor has it, he started his own business while in college and now owns an IT company. Hi Clint, it's been a while. I'm now working in cleaning.
Hey, Clint, give it a rest, man.
Before I could finish, one of the guys cut me off.
Don't you feel sorry for him? A dropout living as a cleaner, trying to blend in with the elites. Just leave him be.
Then, the others smirked and laughed while looking at me.
Can't believe he had the nerve to show up.
The disgrace of our college.
They said, loud enough for me to hear. Clint looked at me, puzzled, so I gestured back that I was okay. Even after the bride and groom entered and the reception started, the verbal attacks on me didn't stop. I was prepared for this, being Tom's friend, but I couldn't understand why they demeaned my job. Clint whispering, "Don't mind them," and smiling was the only consolation. This happened when the bride and groom came to our table during the candle service.
Brian, thank you for coming today. I'm glad you're here.
Tom said, smirking down at me. Congratulations. I said that and nodded to the bride as well. The bride, Marissa, seemed young and pretty at first glance, but it felt like her beauty was masked with makeup. What bothered me more was her seemingly unintelligent way of speaking.
Damn, my arm is tired, Tom, do it by yourself.
Marissa puffed her cheeks like a child, saying that, with too much blush, she looked like she had mumps.
Marissa, honey, just a little longer, okay? Let's do our best.
Tom soothed her with a purring voice, while the others at the table exchanged looks and chuckled. I was holding back laughter too. Then Tom suddenly accused me, "Brian, you just laughed, didn't you?" with his devilish and pale face. No, not really. I wondered if my inner laughter had somehow leaked out without my notice. Then, Tom abruptly grabbed a plate of half-eaten food from in front of me and dumped it on the floor.
Yikes, no.
Marissa shrieked in a voice resembling a scream. The sauce splashes all over the expensive carpet on the floor.
My bad, slipped out of my hand.
Tom laughed mockingly while looking down at me. People from nearby tables turned their attention to us, wondering what was happening. A female staff member rushed over to clean up, but Tom stopped her, saying,
No worries, my friend sitting here is a cleaner, accustomed to dealing with dirty things. Let him handle it, please, Mr. Cleaner.
But we can't ask your guests to do that.
As the female staff hesitated, Marissa intervened, just do as Tom says, and dismissed the staff member. I was beyond angry, simply dumbfounded. Marissa looked at me with a mocking laugh, just like Tom. You two are a match made in heaven, perfect for each other. I muttered to myself with a laugh.
What?
Tom's face turned sour as he confronted me. Ignoring him, I stood up and advised the staff member. For first aid, please dampen a cloth with lukewarm water, soak it with a neutral detergent, and tap it to transfer the stain onto the cloth. It's best to get it cleaned by a professional as soon as possible. Then I turned to Tom, glaring, and said, I'm a professional in cleaning. If you want me to clean for you, come to my company and make a formal request. I threw a napkin onto the chair and was about to leave. Then Marissa blocked my way.
My husband called you social trash. Don't think you can defy an elite being trash yourself.
I gazed at her, marveling at how different she was from Emily, completely different creature. Then, I noticed Emily standing behind the bride. Emily. Surprised, I watched as Emily gently tapped the bride's shoulder and announced with a bright smile,
I'll ask my dad to erase the groom's seat at work.
Marissa shook off her hand, bewildered. What are you talking about? That's impossible. And who are you?
Emily, what's wrong with you? Are you drunk? Save your sleep talk for bed. Keep out if it's none of your business.
Tom tried to push Emily aside. I instinctively blocked his hand, stepping forward to protect Emily. Emily's maiden name was Wilson, and she used it professionally. Her real father, the bank branch manager, suddenly appeared with a laugh, tension instantly filling the air.
The sense of justice you have is truly your father's, Miss Emily.
The branch manager. I apologize for showing you such an unsightly scene.
The manager, looking at Emily with a sense of regret, added,
I know you're busy, but try to call your dad sometimes. He seemed lonely when I saw him at the headquarters recently.
Yes, I will.
Emily said, looking embarrassed.
The branch manager to have you here today.
Tom, flustered, tried to step forward, pushing me aside, but the manager ignored him and spoke to me.
Oh, Brian, it's been a while. How is the President Carol doing?
What?
Tom stared at me, dumbfounded. Sorry for the late greeting, branch manager. My aunt is as energetic as ever, working hard every day. The manager nodded with a smile.
I heard she's launching a new welfare-related business. She's thrilled to have you as her successor. It gives her work more purpose.
Tom and Marissa looked at us bewilderedly.
The branch manager is Emily's father.
This person isn't just a cleaner.
The branch manager said with an exasperated look.
What, you didn't know? Her father is Mr. Wilson, the head of the HR department. This man, Brian Smith, is the nephew of the president of Smith Corporation, which owns many subsidiaries related to cleaning services, and he's the next president. He's also Emily's husband.
What? The head of HR, the next president, and her husband.
Tom turned pale and staggered backward in panic. Marissa looked equally flustered.
But he was wearing a work uniform, cleaning the building.
When Tom pointed at me, the branch manager looked at me admiringly and said,
The president's policy is that executives involved in management must undergo several years of field training. Understanding the field's hardships is considered crucial for managing the company. It's truly a remarkable company.
Then, turning to Tom, he continued,
Smith Corporation is a significant client for our branch. If this incident leads to a cessation of business, you will undoubtedly be put out. And if you've also made a bad impression on the head of HR, there's no saving you. Well, try your best with your lovely bride wherever you go.
With a laugh, stating he had another appointment, the branch manager excused himself.
Branch manager, wait.
Tom and Marissa timidly turned back to us.
Well, Brian and Emily.
Tom forced an awkward smile, looking back and forth between us. Sorry, Tom, but we'll be taking our leave now. As the next president, I need to discuss changing our main bank with our president, I said, and Emily added,
I also have to hurry and call my dad.
Tom clings to us desperately.
Come on, Emily, please, Brian, aren't you my friend?
We are friends, no way. Don't make me laugh. I brush off Tom's hand and say, You're done for. Tom collapses to his knees, crestfallen. Emily and I leave together, walking away from the scene. As we open the doors to leave the venue, we heard Marissa's screams behind us.
What? You're getting fired from the bank? This is no joke. Call off the wedding right now. I refuse to marry a man like this. Daddy, do something.
The venue starts buzzing with noise.
What? What are you talking about? I wouldn't want a foolish woman like you, even if you begged.
Excuse me.
Emily and I hear this, look at each other, and share a laugh. We took a taxi from the hotel, got off at a convenience store near our house, and bought sandwiches and beer. Instead of the missed full-course French meal, we walked leisurely home, bathed in the sunset, feeling as if we were on a date for the first time in a while. Are you okay with how things turned out? Everyone at your bank found out about your father. I asked Emily this question midway across a bridge over a small river.
I grew up seeing my mother struggle after their divorce, never forgiving my father for being a workaholic and neglecting his family. That's why I've been working myself to death, choosing a general career position, even when they said it was impossible for a woman, thinking I wouldn't lose to men, to my father.
She said so with distant eyes. Then she continued,
But working at the same bank as my father, I finally understood my father's struggles. He must have had a hard time, too. So I hope to build a good relationship with my father from now on.
Emily leaned on the railing, looking at the river shimmering in the sunset. Then she turned to me.
I can think this way because of you, for always being there to support me gently. Thank you, Brian.
Emily's smile, tinged with the color of the setting sun, made me blush a bit. Then let's have dinner with your dad sometime. Emily nods happily at my suggestion. Some days later, according to what Emily told me, Tom's wedding reception turned out to be a complete disaster. It wasn't just the bride and groom. A massive fight broke out involving their parents and relatives, who had been against the marriage from the start. Naturally, the reception was called off, and the couple split up soon after, leading to the collapse of their relationship. As for Tom, he was later transferred to an affiliate of the bank. It's said he's completely off the track for promotion now. Ever since that incident, Tom seems to have become a much quieter person, but can people really change that quickly? I bet it won't be long before his true colors show again. A few years later, Emily was transferred back to the headquarters, where she thrived in the HR department's career group, organizing external training and programs to support the advancement of female employees. She was also pouring her efforts into creating a workplace environment where women could balance work and child-rearing, becoming a focal point for the media as a female executive. As for me, after completing my field training, I was under the president's wing, receiving formal education as his successor.
You're really starting to look the part in a suit. I wish my brother and sister-in-law could see you now.
Wearing an unfamiliar suit, I spent my days accompanying the president on visits to clients. Occasionally, he would say something like that and become teary-eyed. One evening, on my way home, I found myself watching the sunset from the usual bridge. Lately, I've been feeling especially grateful for having a fulfilling job. I wish I could tell my younger self, who had dropped out of college and was despairing over life after the sudden loss of my parents. Your future is very happy.
Brian?
I heard someone call my name, and I turned around to see Emily, walking towards me with a smile, waving her hand. Welcome back. You're home early today, aren't you? Emily approached me with a slight blush and said,
Today, I left work early and went to the doctor.
What? Are you feeling all right? I asked in surprise. Emily didn't answer directly, but, with a big smile, took an ultrasound picture out of her bag. She then covered half of her face with it and looked at me with teary eyes.
I'm 3 months pregnant.
Overwhelmed with joy, I instinctively hugged Emily.
We're going to be parents.
Emily said with tears in her voice. Oh, how I wish I could tell my past self. I am incredibly happy right now.
You don't need to speak, okay? You're not hired. I just don't like people with only a high school degrees. You're basically screaming, I am incompetent, right?
I had to work right after high school due to my family circumstances. I understand it. It's truly regrettable. But I will withdraw from the interview. I was insulted by the interviewer at the job interview, and I was furious and decided to withdraw from the interview myself. However, the next day, I received a call on my cell phone from an unexpected person. Naturally, I was taken aback. The company I interviewed with yesterday has since fallen into a serious situation. My name is Michael Johnson. Since I was young, I want to be a painter, and I've been working hard every day. The reason why I want to be a painter, it's because my dad is a painter. My dad is an unsuccessful landscape painter. He can draw magnificent pictures with just a brush on a white canvas. As a child, I believed he was a real magician. However, the income of an unsuccessful painter wasn't enough to live on. Therefore, the main breadwinner in our family was my mom. Back then, it was still rare for women to work outside the home. I think it must have been very hard for her. But she never once spoke ill of my dad's job. On the contrary, they were so lovey-dovey couple that I was annoyed by their love for each other as a child. Probably, she also liked the paintings my dad drew. I remember her looking happy every time she came home from work and saw my dad heading for his canvas.
You know, I really love your dad's paintings.
She said so with a fulfilled look on her face. Seeing that made my heart full. I want to paint pictures that make people smile. It was probably inevitable that I aspired to be a painter. When I started high school, I joined the art club without any hesitation. The club was an environment for me to improve my skills with my classmates and seniors. It was so enjoyable. I painted whenever I had free time. Apparently, I had something called talent. My art club teacher suggested me early on that I should consider going to an art school. But thinking about the tuition, I knew I couldn't afford art school. Yet, having someone appreciate my efforts and talent was gratifying. The teacher must have had a hunch about my family's situation, knowing that art school wasn't a realistic option for me. But still, the teacher always encouraged me to try for art-related awards whenever possible.
Even if it's difficult to go to art school, having some achievements will surely be helpful in the future.
I was a bit doubtful about what the teacher said, but I kept on painting anyway. At first, my paintings didn't win any awards. But as I continued to paint under my teacher's advice, my desired subjects and techniques gradually became clearer. Yes, I was definitely leveling up. I kept painting tirelessly. A major breakthrough happened when I was in second grade of high school. I won a prestigious Newcomers Award. It was a well-known award, and many of its recipients had gone on to become famous. And winning it as a high school student was quite rare, happening only once every few decades. Genius painter emerges. That was the headline in a magazine article about me. But the happiest about it were not me, but my parents.
My painting is similar, yet so different from yours.
It feels like you, Michael, and above all, it's incredibly beautiful.
Watching my parents smile like that, I was feeling happiness for the first time in my life. Then, shortly after winning the Newcomers Award, I gathered the courage to share my future dreams with my parents. I want to become a painter like Dad and make someone smile. At first, they were surprised, but then they gave me their biggest smiles.
Michael can do it. After all, you're the child of a painter.
Yay. However, Dad gave me some advice with a slightly serious face.
But you know, being a painter doesn't always pay well. If there's another path you can take, I think that might be better.
Hearing this, my mom started to argue. Oh, come on.
You know, seeing your paintings is one of the greatest pleasures of my life.
Well, that's...
I watched their heartwarming exchange, truly glad to be their child, but happy times come to an end. During my senior year of high school, my mom suffered a stroke due to overwork and collapsed. Fortunately, she was out of immediate danger, but had to be hospitalized for a long time in her critical condition. We lost our major breadwinner. We rushed to find a job. I got a part-time job, and Dad found full-time employment. We got jobs, but the work was so hard that it was impossible for me to find time to paint. At home, Dad and I were so exhausted, all we could do was sleep. Our ability to immerse ourselves in painting in this house was all thanks to Mom's support. We were painfully reminded of this. We also realized just how significant Mom's always smiling presence was, no matter how tired she was. We visited her in the hospital every day, expressing our love and gratitude. Then, one day, my cell phone suddenly rang. The screen showed numerous missed calls from Dad. Not just one or two. I had a bad feeling. The message said, "Mom's condition has worsened. Come to the hospital immediately." I rushed to the hospital with pale face. I kept praying for my mom's life on the way. It'll be okay. Mom will definitely be okay. However, the scene that greeted me when I opened the hospital door, all I could see there was my crying dad and my cold mom.
She passed away about 30 minutes ago.
The nurse explained to me as I stood there in a deep shock. Approaching the bed, I saw Mom lying there with her usual peaceful expression. Is she just sleeping? I asked the nurse repeatedly, but all they did was shake their heads silently. The rest of the memories are honestly a blur. Mom's funeral, various procedures, everything felt surreal. After everything was over, in the now quiet house, Dad started stuffing his painting supplies into trash bags. "Dad, what are you doing?" I was shocked, but Dad didn't respond. "Dad, please, Dad." Dad only noticed me after I called out to him several times. It seems that finally, my dad noticed I was there.
It's my fault. Because I kept painting.
Dad, holding a bag full of supplies, started crying.
I didn't work enough. It's because of me. I killed Mom.
My dad just kept crying. I had no idea what to say to him. He was almost a broken man, consumed by guilt. In such a situation, I couldn't possibly say, "I want to study art at art school." Our family finances were already tight, with practically no savings. So, inevitably, as soon as I graduated from high school, I had to start working. But giving up on further education didn't guarantee finding a job. It was the summer of my senior year at high school. Having focused solely on painting all this time, I didn't even know what I needed to apply for a regular job. As expected, a flood of rejection letters came pouring in. I was sick of opening them. Then, one day, as usual, I opened a rejection email and was astonished. No way. I had received 2 acceptance letters for the application screening from the famous art companies that I had secretly wanted to join, and not from just one, but 2 companies. Both were looking for college graduates or art school graduates. So, a high school graduate like me shouldn't even have been eligible. But I applied for the job with no luck. Along with my resume, I had sent a few old paintings as part of a portfolio, which might have worked in my favor. And the interview day, by chance, was the same for both companies. There was a possibility of getting job offers from both. Thinking about it made my heart start to race. Watch me, Mom. I spoke to my mom in heaven. I was definitely going to take this chance. On the day of the interview, amid overwhelming nervousness, I waited for my turn.
Please come in.
When my name was called, I hurriedly stood up, knocked on the door as I had practiced, and entered into the room. 3 interviewers were in the room, all staring at me intently. I am. Just as I was about to introduce myself, something unexpected happened.
You don't need to speak, okay? You're not hired.
One of the interviewers cut me off.
Sorry to bring you here for nothing, but you're not what we're looking for.
Naturally, I was taken aback, staring at the interviewer. The interviewer, smirking, continued to look at me.
Well, you see, you're just a high school grad, right? We only hire art grads.
Although he said so, it was something I couldn't just accept. You're the ones who called me for the job interview. Sensing my anger, the interviewer continued with a look of disdain.
Well, HR probably thought it'd be good to show some high school kid the harshness of the real world by inviting them to an interview.
The interviewer seemed pleased with my speechlessness, continuing gleefully. The other interviewers tried to stop him, saying that he was saying too much, but he continued to talk as if he was in a higher position than the others.
To be honest, I dislike high school grads. Talking to them feels like I'm getting dumber. People who can even get into college are hopeless, right? They're just living their lives advertising to everyone that they're incompetent. Don't you feel embarrassed?
The interviewer, with a crude smile on his face, made a gesture with his hand toward me as if he shooed away a stray dog. This man, with utter contempt for me, it filled me with intense anger. Hey fool, you can't get into college. Don't mess with me. Does he have any idea why I had to give up further education? I would have gone if I could. But there are people in this world who can go on to higher education for many different reasons. It was clear my interview was over, but I couldn't leave without saying something. I was almost losing my mind with anger. I understand it. It's a great pity. But I will have to withdraw from the interview. At that moment, the interviewer smiled gleefully, but I continued regardless. I have no interest in working for a company that only values people based on their highest level of education. Having said that, I grabbed my bag, greeted him at the door, and left. As I walked out into the hallway, the other job seekers were staring at me. Probably, they had heard everything from my interview. Feeling awkward under their gazes, I looked down and hurried away. On the way home, I found myself crying tears of frustration. Damn it. I tried to act tough, but the shock was real. I can't let this get to me. I need to switch gears. I muttered, desperately wiping away my tears. I still had one more interview today. I couldn't show up with a face swollen from crying. I had to secure a job offer, no matter what, to support my dad, who had become almost like a zombie. All right. I psyched myself up and somehow managed to refocus, rechecking the materials for the next company. I couldn't afford to lose. The next day, I was awakened by the ringtone of my cell phone. Too many things happened yesterday. After the second interview, I had fallen asleep like I was going to pass out. I have to answer this call. Thinking that, I quickly grabbed my phone. It was a call from the company I had withdrawn from yesterday. Do they want to say something? I'm already rejected. Just leave me alone. Reluctantly, I pressed the call button.
Is this Johnson? We would like to apologize about yesterday's interview.
I was confused. The person who made the call was the company's president, and that is personally apologizing to one student who is job hunting. What the hell is going on? The president explained what had happened. Apparently, one of the job seekers in the hallway had recorded the entire my interview and posted it on social media. The interviewer mocked high school graduates excessively and said, "You're hopeless, no matter what you do, in the end," which is currently causing a lot of trouble on social networking sites. After the call, I hurriedly searched online and found that the news was everywhere. There were also voices questioning why my name was mentioned in the video.
Isn't this the kid who was recently a sensation in the art world?
So, this company not only failed to recognize the talent of a genius painter, but also disparaged him just for his educational background. There are high school grads among their clients, right? What's with this attitude?
That blow-up never stops. In fact, some clients were considering terminating their contracts with the company. Suddenly, my doorbell rang. Several men in suits were standing outside. The interviewer from yesterday was among them.
We are terribly sorry.
When I stepped out onto the porch, all the men apologized deeply to me. It was a very formal apology, their expressions full of sincere regret. Given that they were on the verge of losing all their business deals, their response seemed almost expected. The interviewer looked like he had been severely reprimanded by the executives. His face gaunt and trembling.
If Johnson has no objections, we would very much like to offer you a position at our company.
The interviewer then continued in a trembling voice, "Of course, no need for another interview." But I shook my head. "I'm sorry, but I've already secured a job offer elsewhere." My response seemed to completely catch them off guard. Then I simply said, "Excuse me," to the men in confusion, and closed the front door. That day, despite being in tatters, I had also visited a reputable event planning company known for its skilled staff. This company handles a lot of art-related matters. People with a strong interest in art, extensive knowledge, or the actual ability to paint are highly valued. After seeing such comments, I decided to apply. When I arrived at the office and announced that I was there for the interview, I was directed to the waiting room. The walls there were adorned with paintings by artists I admired. Working here would surely be a joy every day. Just as I muttered that, a man appeared from the back. As soon as he approached me, he immediately asked for a handshake, which I accepted. Then, he showed a genuinely happy smile. He seemed to be overwhelmed with happiness, one that reminded me of how my mom looked when she saw my dad's paintings.
Nice to meet you. I'm Anderson, the president here. Today's meeting, rather than an interview, I was hoping to scout you.
What?
Actually, I'm a big fan of yours, Johnson.
I was confused, but Anderson held out a magazine clipping to me. There it was, the painting I had created in my sophomore year. Oh, this! I was at a loss for words. It was the painting that won me the Newcomers Award. This painting was created when my mom was still alive, and all I could think about was the joy of painting.
I really love this painting, especially the use of colors. It's like magic, isn't it? I always wanted to meet the artist. So, you can imagine my surprise when your portfolio arrived.
According to Anderson, the portfolio I sent was excellent, and with a little polishing, I could be an immediate asset. The conversation smoothly, almost effortlessly, shifted to employment terms.
We may not be able to promise salaries and benefits like big companies, but we can assure an environment that respects your talent and direction to the fullest. Of course, we'll support your painting activities as much as possible.
From his tone, it was clear Anderson highly valued me. But what moved me most was his reference to magic-like paintings. This is exactly how I felt looking at my dad's paintings as a child. Please let me work here. I immediately decided and made my request. Of course, the first company knew nothing about this. Had they known, they wouldn't have come asking me to work for them the next day. The first company later revealed the inside story of pressure interviews and academic discrimination. As a result, they gained a bad reputation as a black company, leading most of their job offer recipients to decline, and several competent employees resigned. They were about to go public, but the incident with me caused their reputation to plummet, forcing the cancellation of their IPO. Including the loss of business partners, the damage was in the tens of millions of dollars. The interviewer who handled my interview was forced to resign as a disciplinary action. If only they hadn't discriminated based on educational background, it wouldn't have caused such a big problem. But it was too late for regrets. A year has passed. Now, I'm gaining experience not just as a painter, but also as a staff member at an event planning company. I'm currently involved in a major project, an exhibition for a certain artist. Of course, that artist is my dad. The paintings are being delivered over here.
Right, thanks.
Sometime after starting this company, I somewhat forcefully showed Anderson my dad's paintings. I was sure he would like them if he liked mine. My intuition was right on target, and Anderson was extremely impressed. Anderson, who had become a fan of my dad's painting, declared, I will produce this amazing artist. Thus, a large-scale solo exhibition was planned in a prime city location. Initially, my dad was hesitant to pick up the brush again, but after much persuasion from me and the president, he changed his mind. The final push came from my words. Mom was the main breadwinner because she loved Dad's paintings. Finally reconciled, my dad is now overwhelmed with interviews and painting requests. My dad, who once became a hopeless artist, is now creating new works of art. Continuously creating new works fills me with joy. And then the opening day arrived. Standing beside my dad, I looked at the paintings he had made during the time Mom was alive. He didn't say anything, but he was probably thinking about many things. So I just stood there silently beside him. Then it happened.
You both really did well.
I felt as if I heard that voice from somewhere. Did you hear it?
Yeah, Mom came to see us.
My dad was smiling. It was the same happy smile as when my mom was with us. We were finally moving forward.
Aren't you embarrassed by your low education? It really shows where you come from. I'd love to see what your parents look like.
I went to the final interview at a major company, and the interviewer, comparing his prestigious educational background to mine, insulted me for my lower education. It seems he's quite proud of his graduation from Harvard. I understood. I'll introduce them to you. One cannot judge someone's abilities merely by their appearance or education. The interviewer could never have imagined. He would not have expected that a thoughtless comment out of his pride would have resulted in him strangling himself. On day in September, I was challenging the final interview at a company. It was a moment where the results of my life and studies were being tested. Of course, just because I passed the final interview doesn't mean everything in life will go smoothly, nor is this the goal. But in a way, it's the culmination of my life so far.
So, John Smith, right? You want to join our company?
Fanning his resume like a fan, the interviewer glanced at me briefly. It was a displeasing look, as if he was assessing my worth. The interviewer's name was Taylor. I had seen him in the first and second interviews, but I just couldn't get along with him. Yes, your company is my top choice. My goal is to join your company and be involved in major projects that move society, I said, looking straight into Taylor's eyes.
Ha!
As if he couldn't hold back, Taylor snorted through his nose. Then he casually threw my resume on the table, leaned back in his chair, and looked up at the ceiling. Crossing his legs, Taylor looked down on me and let out a conspicuous click of his tongue.
Some people really have the wrong idea.
And that is...
Don't you get it? You didn't graduate from a prestigious university, did you? We're from XYZ University. No, I never heard of it.
Saying that, Taylor put his feet on the table. The muddy soles of his shoes rested on my resume. The mud stuck to the white paper. It's just where the photo of my face and the school I graduated from are on my resume.
Well, I'm a Harvard grad, you know. Ever heard of Harvard?
Of course.
Right. Even someone with your education knows it. Though I guess for you, getting in would have been a pipe dream.
His voice was laced with barely concealed scorn. No, he probably had no intention of hiding his disdain. I'm sure Tyler recognized me as someone he could mock. Sometimes you meet people like this. They judge others solely by their education and think it's okay to say anything if they consider them inferior. I don't like people like that very much. It's true that my alma mater's rank isn't the highest, but I've always studied hard since I was young, and my grades.
Grades or whatever, that's not the point. I'm now talking about academic background. If you want to climb to the top in our company, education is crucial. To not be looked down upon by our clients. Harvard grads like me are valued the most.
What is he trying to say? Watching me fall silent, Taylor's unpleasant smile grew stronger.
Someone with low education like you, sorry to say, might just end up at the bottom forever?
The words that followed were unbearable. He went on about how superior he was, how he had contributed to the company, none of which needed to be discussed in an interview. By the time I was thoroughly fed up, Taylor finally took his feet off the table.
Do you really think you can make it in this company?
Yes, I've thoroughly prepared and studied for this. Definitely.
Seriously. Are you still dreaming like this? You think this is some kind of comedy club audition?
He didn't even try to hide his mockery and disdain. How can someone raised in what kind of home turn out like this? I could tell I was being looked down upon. It didn't feel good. This takes me back to when I was just a kid. Life has its ways of bringing people together. And fortune has its ups and downs. At that time, my family, or rather I should say, we were in what you'd call rock bottom. We had no money, no food, nothing to put on the table for side dishes, and everything I wore or used for school, from clothes to study materials, was second-hand. I felt shabby because of my situation, often ridiculed for being poor, and it was shameful not being able to talk back. Looking back, my parents must have had it even harder than me. They must have felt terrible not being able to provide proper meals. Back then, I was struggling and hungry every day, and I couldn't see the sacrifices my parents were making. But at some point, food started appearing more often on our table, and I got new clothes for the first time.
Just hang in there a little longer. I'll make more money. Then we can eat all the good food we want.
I remember my dad patting my head and saying that. Our living standards improved after my dad started his own business. He worked late every night, sometimes staying at the company for days to get the business on track. So, can we go out this weekend? I'd like to go to the amusement park.
The amusement park, God. Go with your mom. Sorry, but I've got work that day too.
As our family became wealthier, my dad came home less and less. He was always busy with work, even on weekend. Ironically, the better our life got, the less time we spent together as a family. Eventually, my dad didn't come back home. His company had grown.
I'm sorry. This is a crucial time for me.
I silently watched my dad pack his suitcase and leave. From that day, it was just me and my mom at home. My dad was so busy. He only came home once or twice a year. By the time I was in high school, it had been almost 2 years since his last visit. Your dad is a busy manual, my mom said so, but she looked lonely. Seeing my mom like that, and my dad not coming home, I made up my mind. I wouldn't be a workaholic like my dad. I wanted to be someone who could take care of his family. When I entered high school, I started to study and take lessons in various subjects. Luckily, my family was wealthy. I could learn anything I wanted. I studied art. I had a tutor for my studies. I also attended Spanish classes and gathered a lot of reference books. All the money for this came from my dad. And the more I studied and gained knowledge, the more I understood how much effort my dad had put into starting his business and keeping it running. It wasn't a trivial struggle. It was so intense he barely had time to come home. But still, I couldn't come to admire him for that. He chose the work over his family. I didn't want to be like that. This feeling grew stronger day by day. My mom must have noticed how I felt about my dad. But she supported me without saying anything. She said, "Do what you want to do." She pushed me forward.
Knowing it would be tough, why did you go to such a low-ranked college?
The interview with Taylor had ceased to be an interview long ago. It had degenerated into nothing more than an occasion for Taylor to mock my educational background. In the interview room, the two of us, Taylor and me, had no one there to stop his relentless ridicule. Honestly, I thought about just leaving then and there. But I had compelling reasons for wanting to join this company. And it was those reasons alone that kept me seated in this interview. I really wanted to study a certain subject, and I chose that university because it was close to my house. It's just my mom and me, so I didn't feel like going too far.
Study a subject. You should have focused on getting a better degree. That's why you'll always be at the bottom, you know.
I, the wise one, will teach a fool like you. His voice was dripping with such intent. I don't think so. I believe what matters more than one's educational background is what one does after joining a company.
There are always people like you who are mistaken.
Am I mistaken?
Yes, severely mistaken. Really, what kind of life must one lead to arrive at such a conclusion?
Saying this, Taylor picked up my resume again. He turned to the section on family and traced his finger over my parents' names.
Didn't your parents try to stop you? Tell you to go to a better university?
He tapped on my parents' names with his finger. Over and over, as if to emphasize his point.
Were your parents also poorly educated? Well, that explains it.
I wanted to say that it had nothing to do with them. I thought it wouldn't make any difference, so I refrained from saying anything back.
This is amusing. It's a pity we probably won't meet again. I really wanted to see the face of someone with uneducated parents.
I understood Taylor's way of thinking. I could see that he was an academic snobism. And he wanted to see my parents' faces, too. I understood.
What? Your mistake in choosing. It's too late to do anything about your low education, isn't it?
Not that. You want to see my parents' face, right?
Who? What are you talking about? I'm busy, you know.
It was true. He was busy. After all, the company Tyler works for, Smith Corporation, where I hope to join, has an annual turnover exceeding $3 billion. They were planning to start a new venture next year. I knew he was busy preparing for that. It won't take long. Let's go meet him. I also want to see my dad's face. It's been a while. The elevator ascended swiftly to the upper floors. Watching the floor indicator, Taylor looked puzzled.
Hey, John, where are we heading for?
Don't you know what room is on the upper floors of your own company? It was a question loaded with implication, wondering if Taylor was aware.
It's not that, but ahead lies.
Before Taylor could finish his sentence, the elevator arrived at the designated floor. The top floor of the headquarters building of Smith Corporation. There was only one room there, the CEO's office. In other words, this is the room at the top of a large company with annual sales of $3 billion.
Do you realize where you are?
I know. As the elevator doors opened, Taylor, inadvertently stepping into the CEO's office, turned pale. He reached out to stop me, but I avoided his hand and stepped into the CEO's office.
Who is it? Oh.
Long time no see, Dad. Looks like you're as busy as ever.
John, oh, today was your final interview, right?
Dad.
Taylor's face visibly paled even more. Sweat drenched from his forehead down to his chin. The CEO, my dad, turned his gaze towards Taylor.
You're from HR, right?
Yes. Sir, today, I was in charge of interviewing your son, and
Taylor's words trailed off into a whisper. It must have dawned on him too late. The person he had been belittling for his low education was the son of the CEO of the company he worked for. Yes, Tyler told me a lot of interesting stories. Taylor flinched as if scared. He kept his gaze down, trying to escape my dad's look. A single drop of sweat fell from his nose onto the carpet.
Well, you're Tyler, right? Thank you for bringing my son up here.
My dad said this in an emotionless voice.
Oh, no. Your son is very bright and,
He has always been hard working with his studies and lessons. Now, I would like to have a word alone with my son if you don't mind stepping out. We'll take care of the rest.
Oh, of course, sir. I'll excuse myself, Ben.
A boat on the way over, or a thread of clouds hanging over hell. Tyler nodded repeatedly at my dad's words and rushed into the elevator. He likely couldn't wait to get out of there. He kept his head down the whole time as he descended to the lower floors. He never once made eye contact with me or my dad again.
Is he not feeling well? He seemed a bit off.
Well, not so much unwell. Probably just embarrassed.
I don't quite follow, but well, it's all right.
With that, my dad cut off the conversation and let out a deep sigh, as if releasing something pent up inside. He then motioned for me to join him on the sofa.
Let's talk for a bit.
Is there something to talk about? I know you've been working hard for me and Mom. I said this as I took a seat opposite my dad. This situation of a newly interviewed employee candidate having a conversation with the CEO in his office made me feel slightly amused. Such a scenario isn't something you'd find just anywhere in the world.
Indeed, but I still wanted to apologize.
Apologize? For what? My tone was sharper than I intended. It seems I haven't forgiven my dad as much as I thought I had. Sensing my feelings, my dad gave a troubled smile.
For everything, up until now.
My dad sighed again. Then he apologized to me. Even if it was for you and your mom, I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you. I think I've made you and your mom feel very lonely. Yes, my mom and I were always lonely. Even after we moved to a larger house, I had no worries about food or clothes, and I could take lessons in anything I wanted. Our living standards improved. But my mom and I were always lonely. I was lamenting the fact that we couldn't spend time together as a family. I always dreamed of going to the amusement park with my dad, mom, and me together when I was a child. Every time I saw classmates holding hands with their parents on the way home, I felt a tightness in my chest. My mom would always say, "Be patient." I still remember the loneliness in her voice. I'll never forget it for as long as I live. After all this time, you left us alone and we're just working.
You're right to feel that way. I was concerned about you guys in my own way. But yeah, you wouldn't have noticed.
My dad scratched his head as if it couldn't be helped. Concerned. How can you be concerned when you were always away on business trips?
Yeah, I suppose. But it's true. It might sound like an excuse, but...
That's when my dad mentioned several names. They were the names of the tutors and the classes I had been attending. Huh?
I was keeping an eye on you in my own way. I dropped by the classes or the tutors to ask how you were doing.
Then why?
Sounds a bit sappy, right? When I heard from your mom that you wanted to start a new hobby, I was the one looking up suitable classes or seminars.
My dad laughed, saying it even though it was unspoken. His sad laugh made my heart ache a little.
Well, it wasn't just for you. It was for the company too.
For the company?
Yes. A company is ultimately about connections between people. For example, the tutoring center you attended is mostly funded by our company.
It seems I was unaware, but my dad had been doing fatherly things in his own way. Did my mom know about this? She probably did. And she must have kept silent because my dad asked her to. So she never told me.
It was a good tutoring center, right? It would be a waste for such a place to go under. Now, even the kids of our employees get a bit of a discount there.
Essentially, it was business. The actions of a CEO of a large corporation. But behind those actions was hidden affection for me. Using company funds to overly favor me would have been inappropriate given his position. Perhaps this was the only way he could fulfill both roles as CEO and as a dad. Right now, I don't care about the company. At least, I understand that I've grown up with my dad's support behind the scenes. You could have just told me. I've been working hard, thinking I'd surprise you by how much I've grown. My eyes felt hot, slightly teary. I looked down to hide my moist eyes.
I know. I knew you were working hard.
My dad's large hand rested on my head. My dad stroked my head as if I were a little boy. How long has it been since I've been patted on the head like this? I realize now, I always wanted my dad to pat my head again. The misunderstanding between us cleared up effortlessly, as if the years of estrangement meant nothing.
So, what do you want to do? I know you're doing well. You don't have to work at our company if you don't want to.
About that, I still want to work here.
Oh.
I've realized you're a respectable person. I was mistaken. The misunderstanding was my dad's fault, but he had been watching over me in his own way. It was just knowing that I made all the effort to stay until the final interview worthwhile. I want to be like you, so please let me learn here at the company. I said that, and my dad replied pleasedly, I understood. By the way, I want to change the subject. Now that I had the chance to sit down and talk with my dad, or rather, the CEO, there was something else I wanted to discuss.
Something on your mind.
My dad straightened up and leaned in to look at my face. Looking into my eyes, he sensed it was time for a serious conversation. There's something I want to talk about. It's about Taylor, who was in charge of my interview earlier. I told my dad about Taylor's actions. He was arrogant, inappropriate for an interviewer, put his foot on my resume, was an academic snobism, and made comments that mocked me and my parents. After hearing everything, my dad stroked his chin, making a troubled face. Then he stood up from the reception seat and picked up a document from the massive pile on his desk.
I'd like to keep this between us, but there have been reports about his work behavior.
It seems Taylor has been falsely claiming business outings for personal leisure, repeatedly engaging in bullying and harassment, taking company property home without permission, and leaking confidential information.
Indeed, he has a high education, but he seems to be quite dishonest. I shouldn't be talking to you about this.
No, I kind of thought he might be that kind of person.
Well, I'll handle it from here. Thanks for letting me know.
My dad said so, placing the document back on the table and adopting a serious expression.
Listen, John, it may be redundant for me to say this, but there's something I want you to remember.
What's that?
Be sincere. To lead and inspire others, being trusted is paramount. Remember that, and you can rise from the depths, just as I did.
My dad's face was lined with fine wrinkles. It had been a while since I looked at my dad's face so closely. Each wrinkle seemed to speak of the hardships he had endured. Later, I was informed that Taylor had been fired. Subsequently, I joined my dad's company as a new employee. Starting from the bottom, of course. Being the CEO's son didn't afford me any special treatment, nor did I want it from my colleagues or superiors. Like my dad used to do, I want to build my career from scratch on my own. Whether I can become as respectable a CEO as my dad is still uncertain. Embarrassingly, it was only after entering the workforce that I truly understood the challenges of working. However, that was in the early years. Now I've grown accustomed to the work, and it feels as though I've reached my dad's stature, if only by the tips of my fingers.
Heard you led another project to success. The rumors about you being the next CEO are getting louder.
My colleague, Michael, slapped my shoulder. He was a friend who never changed his attitude towards me, even after knowing I was the CEO's son. If I were to become the next CEO, he's exactly the kind of person I'd want on my team. It was all thanks to everyone's cooperation. Yes, it's a load off my shoulders. The past few months had been hectic, with hardly any time for a break. Now, with the project's success, I could finally take some well-deserved time off. I quickly packed my things into my bag, ready to leave on time.
You seem happy. Got a date?
No, it's not a date. My family and I are having dinner together at home tonight. My dad must already be at home, waiting with my mom in the house where I grew up.
Oh, you're early. I thought you'd be late.
Arriving home, I found my dad in the living room. But my mom was not there. Where's Mom?
She went to shopping. We ran out of some seasonings.
I see. Should I start preparing dinner? She shouldn't be long if she just went out for seasonings. In the kitchen, vegetables and meat were neatly arranged on plates. It seems tonight's dinner will be chicken stew.
Seems like you've been busy with the project lately.
Yeah? How about you, Dad?
Easy for me. The young ones have grown up, and now I can relax at home like this.
A few years after I joined the company, which is to say, at the beginning of this year, my dad finally stopped his long commutes. He's getting on in years. It seems he's started to prepare for retirement, leaving the management of the company to his employees. His charisma, which he has cultivated, has not diminished, and he must not be as laid back as he says. It's good if you can relax. I deliberately don't point it out. I understand now that my dad is not one to complain or show weakness, given his reserved nature.
I'm managing to relax. That's what I've been working towards all these years, after all.
Then I'm glad. My dad's efforts have finally paid off. Now it's my turn. Like him, I want to be someone admired by many. Moreover, I want to create an environment where I can truly value my family without being consumed by work. I don't have anyone to be my partner at the moment.
I'd like to see my grandchildren soon.
You know, saying that could be considered harassment these days. Oops, I'll have to be careful then. He jokes, laughing lightly. The sound of the front door signals someone's arrival. It seems my mom has come back.
Our family is elite. You know, high school dropouts, and the poor can just leave.
My mother-in-law, Emily, said that as she pushed my sister, Sarah, away. She judges everything based on educational background, so she's blind to Sarah's true nature. That's probably why she can be so cruel. Emily can't stand the sight of Sarah, even for a second, and is trying to get her out of the workplace, even though she's currently employed. Seeing this, I let slip. Then I guess Dad is fired. I had to explain the situation to a shocked Emily afterward. It wasn't something I should have said, but there's a deep reason behind it. Hearing it, Emily was stunned. She was apparently clueless all along. As I spoke, Emily grew increasingly confused. My name is Michael Kirk. I am a 38-year-old man who dreams of owning a pet. I have a wife, Linda. She came from the Smith family to marry me. She's 1 year younger at 37, and we attended the same high school. Linda also seems interested in pets, just like me. So, we were thinking about getting a dog or a cat soon. When we discussed it, our conversation went like this. Linda, do you have a preference for the type?
Not at all. I'm fine with a mixed breed, and I think adopting rescued pets is a great idea too.
We initially thought about getting one from the pet store, but then considered saving abandoned animals or pets that had been abused by their owners. Now, we're visiting several adoption events, looking for a pet that will be a good match with our family. My desire to adopt a pet probably stems from an incident in my childhood. I lived with my father, mother, sister, and a male dog, Ken, and lost many family members in a car accident. Ken saved my sister and me from the car, allowing us to live. After running to our parents, Ken was killed by the explosion of the car. Naturally, there was no saving our parents, and we could only watch and cry.
Michael, Dad, and Mom are gone. What are we going to do now?
I had to admit, I don't know either. I still regret not being able to comfort my crying sister, Sarah. Back then, there was never a day as hard as when we lost those happy times in an instant. Afterward, we were taken in by our grandparents, but that event cast a dark shadow over our hearts. Despite deciding never to have pets again, I ultimately sought the warmth that was by my side in my youth and decided to have one again through adoption.
You once had your life saved by a pet dog, right? That's why you chose a job related to pets.
Yes, I want to repay the favor to other animals. Having grown up and graduated from college, I started a pet supply company and work as its CEO. What I want to achieve now is to make our next pet as happy as possible, in place of Ken, who is no longer with us. So, I work hard every day towards that goal. I drive to work, admire the beautiful scenery, walk through the company, and exchange greetings with the employees.
Good morning.
Nice weather today, isn't it?
Everyone's faces were lively and brimming with motivation. I want to be able to check on the state of my colleagues at this company anytime. That's why I pay close attention to the employees, and I'm relieved that no problems have arisen today. It's been about 20 years since I founded this company, and we've never faced major issues. I knew that smooth operations required not just a few executives, but the efforts of many regular employees. This is probably because my father, who exists in my memory, used to share the company's hardships with my mother.
The few elites tend to run wild, making it tough for the lower-level employees. Even the regular staff are essential, but they don't get that, threatening to fire them to keep them working.
All right, I got it. Don't grumble about such things in front of the kids. I'll listen to you as much as you need.
My father was quite a complainer, always seeking my mother's ear whenever something difficult arose. But having those memories probably helped me manage the company. As I reminisced, I found myself in the CEO's office. Entering the room, I took out my work tools and got down to business. There was a mountain of work, but I needed to get through it for the approximately 4,000 employees at this company. While staring at documents, I checked the designs for a new dog cage developed by the engineering department and planned meetings with major clients. I get to eat a delicious meal at a nice restaurant tonight, and I'll see Sarah for the first time in a while. I've got to be pumped up for it. Despite the workload, I brought up tonight's plan in my mind and verbalized it to motivate myself. Time flies when I'm engrossed in work. It felt like I had just arrived, but it was already noon. Shortly after, the PAR system announced it was lunchtime. It's already this time. Working non-stop can reduce efficiency, so I should take a break. I set aside the pile of documents and took out the lunchbox my wife made for me. The lunchbox, decorated with cute dog and cat sprinkles, soothed my tired heart. While finishing my meal, thinking about getting a new pet soon, I noticed an email from Linda on my phone. It was about tonight's dinner. Tonight, Linda, my mole Emily, and I were supposed to dine together. But it seemed Emily would be a bit late.
Mom said she might not go after all. Does she really dislike Sarah that much?
I replied with a sense of disappointment and looked away from my phone screen. Linda and I have been married for a while since we tied the knot at 20. However, I haven't had much chance to talk with her mother. One reason is that she runs a well-known advertising firm. It's been hard to ask for her time amidst her busy schedule, so we haven't had many opportunities to talk. Another reason is her emphasis on educational background. She seems to think,
I don't want to associate with people who only finished high school. They haven't learned what they should have. Being with such people might lead to rude remarks or actions.
I want to properly introduce my sister Sarah to Emily, but it's tough because of her values. Especially since Sarah only finished high school. After being bullied by many girls in school, Sarah managed to graduate from high school but couldn't proceed to college. She must have grown averse to building relationships.
Michael, I don't want to go to school anymore. I'm scared to meet people.
I had resolved to raise Sarah properly, but felt powerless when this happened. Fortunately, Sarah managed to recover after a few years, but knowing she only finished high school, Emily seems reluctant to meet her. I wish they could come together somehow, but I'm still unsure how to make it happen. Hours later, after finishing work at the company, I headed to a restaurant. Upon opening the door adorned with beautiful patterns and entering, I was greeted by a woman's voice saying, "Welcome." I casually spoke to her. "Are you working properly? You're not slacking off, right? We have important guests today."
I know that. I've put extra effort into the cooking, so make sure to enjoy and savor it.
The person who brought over the wet wipes and a glass of water to our table after we sat down was my sister, Sarah. Sarah has been working here for over a decade as an apprentice, aspiring to take over this restaurant. She fell in love with the taste of this place during her Sweet 16 party and has been honing her skills to succeed the owner. I hope you're not causing trouble for the owner.
Of course not. Once you're the company's CEO and I'm the owner here, working hard, we can easily take care of a pet or two. I have to work hard to own a pet, too.
Well, that's good to hear.
You don't believe me? Keep that up, and I'll spice up your dish with a ton of chili pepper.
Sarah and I live separately, so it's been a while since we last saw each other. Our homes are a bit far apart, so meeting up isn't easy. Making even small talk a delight. Perhaps it was because we were frolicking like that.
Are you cheating on me with her? You seem quite close.
Linda arrived late and seemed jealous. Sarah went back to the kitchen to bring us wet wipes and water, as Linda joined me at the table. She's my sister, you know that, right?
Of course, I was just teasing.
By the way, where's Emily? Linda averted her eyes, her words unclear, looking apologetically at Sarah.
It seems Dad told Mom about meeting Sarah here, and she got angry, saying she didn't want to come. I wanted to keep it a secret until we met, expecting this would happen.
I see. I expected this, but it's still disappointing. I remembered the apologetic face of a male employee I spoke with before leaving the company. In fact, I was informed by an employee that Emily wouldn't come to this place. Though I knew in advance, it was still a shock when it actually happened. Linda, having received the wet wipes and water from Sarah, continued with a shrug,
Mom's attitude is well known back home. I'm sorry, Sarah.
No, it's okay. It's a fact that I only finished high school. I knew that I would be viewed in that light.
Watching Sarah respond modestly, I felt sad. Sarah hadn't turned to delinquency or failed at studies. It was the toxic environment that kept her from school, and yet she was judged so unfairly. I wished Emily could see for herself what kind of person Sarah is. Seeing Sarah standing dejectedly, Linda put her hand on her shoulder, offering comfort.
It's okay. You're a good person, Sarah. I'm sure my mom will understand eventually.
I hope so.
The kind-hearted restaurant owner gave Sarah a break, so the three of us continued our meal. Linda texted Emily, but the reply was just, "I have plans, can't make it." As expected, Emily didn't show up in the end. A few days later, I would unexpectedly encounter Emily. It was my day off, and I was lazing at home when I realized there was no food in the fridge. With lunchtime approaching and nothing to eat, I decided to go shopping, and that's when I found a lost puppy wandering around. It wasn't on a leash, seemingly stray, covered in mud. It must have been wandering the streets for days. It was especially dirty due to the recent rain. Its paws were particularly bad, caked in mud. I couldn't just watch and was about to approach to help, but unfortunately, a car passed by, startling the dog, and it ran off with incredible speed, making it impossible for anyone to catch up. Even for a puppy, dogs are quick. In no time, it disappeared from sight. Worried, I searched the area for a while, but couldn't find the mud-covered puppy. While searching for the puppy, I somehow remembered the cat that Emily and her family take care of. Linda's family has a Maine Coon female with beautiful fur, living comfortably in an air-conditioned room, likely still enjoying a happy life. Being of pure Maine Coon lineage, I wondered if the cat would have been given such a comfortable environment if it were a mixed breed. Emily's words when introducing the cat came back to me.
Our kitty has a pedigree, a cat of good lineage. Impressive, isn't it? Different from the mixed breed dogs and cats wandering around. If we were to get another, it would have to be from a good bloodline as well.
Any mixed breed pet would probably be not allowed in her home. If one somehow got in, it might even be kicked out.
I will never allow our pet to get hurt by interacting with mixed breed animals. That's why I'm careful about friends bringing pets over. It's their fault if mixed breeds hurt each other, but I can't bear the thought of our precious pet getting caught up in that mess.
Emily would probably not even worry if she saw an injured animal, especially if it was a mixed breed. An hour later, feeling down about the puppy, I headed to the supermarket. I felt sad about the dog, but searching for it blindly wouldn't help, so I had to move on. I was surprised to run into Emily inside the store. Seeing her in a local supermarket I frequent was unexpected, as she usually avoids such common places, preferring high-end department stores according to Linda. It's been a while, Emily. I couldn't just ignore her, so I greeted her. She looked surprised to see me.
Oh, it's been a while, Michael.
I was confused by her reaction, but Emily quickly explained.
Don't get the wrong idea. I don't usually come to these kinds of supermarkets that only sell cheap goods.
Emily seemed to think shopping at a supermarket was beneath her, potentially alienating housewives trying to save money.
I was meeting an old friend and remembered their child, so I came here to buy a gift. It would be rude to meet without bringing anything, right?
I don't think that's necessary. Though having a gift is better than none, I never thought it rude to meet without one. I think that someone who gets angry if they don't receive something can't really be considered an acquaintance.
People expect it from us because we have money.
Emily wanted to avoid the subject further. Appearing anxious,
Are you still shopping here, Michael? As a CEO, you should shop somewhere more fitting for your status.
There's some truth to what you're saying, Emily, but I'm not used to luxury. I thought of the employees working at my company. Some strive for luxury, so it's natural for someone in a high position to live up to his or her income. However, my life has always been modest, heavily influenced by my grandparents, who taught me to make do with what we have, having lived through times of scarcity. This mindset makes it hard to justify changing my lifestyle, even if it might make others uncomfortable about indulging themselves. While discussing this, Emily noticed something.
Sarah works here, doesn't she?
Excuse me. Confused about how Sarah came up, I followed Emily's gaze and saw Sarah working at the cash register. Besides her work at the restaurant, she was also working here. Something I hadn't known. It seems Sarah took on more work without my knowledge.
What do you think about this, Michael? You're a CEO, and yet look at your sister.
It hit me that Emily didn't know Sarah worked at the restaurant. While she knew a fair bit about me, she had little knowledge of Sarah due to the lack of interaction. She probably never imagined that the person invited to the restaurant worked there. Given the restaurant's fame, Emily would surely be surprised to learn this.
Because she's only a high school graduate, she can't get a decent job. If this is the only work she can handle, I can only imagine the barbaric things she might say.
Hearing this, I felt anger rising within me. Sarah, visible in my line of sight, was smiling and talking to the housewives at the register. Her ability to treat each person with care showcased her bright and lively nature. I wished Emily would drop her obsession with academic credentials and see the person right in front of her.
Doing a job like cashier work so happily, doesn't she feel embarrassed?
I think any job is respectable. It's not right to talk that way. While I value jobs requiring unique skills, I don't believe other work is lesser. Every job is essential. Without someone to do it, we'd all struggle. Why can't Emily see it that way? I wanted to change her perspective, choosing my words carefully. Sure, having only a high school education might limit job opportunities, but it doesn't define someone's entire future. Don't judge a person solely by their education level. Surprised by my retort, Emily stared back at me.
That's just idealistic. Reality isn't so sweet.
It might be true, but there are people with enviable jobs who aren't happy. Isn't that reality too? If the person is happy with his or her work, shouldn't that be enough? I felt relieved that pushing Sarah into further education didn't break her. Had I forced her to conform to societal norms and something happened, I couldn't face our parents in heaven. After expressing my views, I observed Emily's reaction. She looked down momentarily, muttering discontentedly about the importance of education.
Michael, you're wrong.
Surprisingly, Emily walked towards Sarah. Feeling something amiss, I quickly followed her. Approaching Sarah at the cashier, Emily spoke in an even tone.
Because of you, Michael has become twisted. Do you realize you're a burden to your brother? How troublesome for the family.
Startled by Emily's sudden appearance, Sarah stopped working and looked utterly confused.
If it were me, I couldn't acknowledge someone like you as family. If only you weren't here, there would be no complaints about Michael and Linda being together.
Hearing this, Sarah looked shocked and started crying. Maybe she had flashbacks of the harassment from her high school days. I rushed to protect Sarah, my important family member, but it seemed I was a bit late.
I've reached my limit. I can't stand being near you for another second, so just disappear from my sight.
With that, Emily shoved the stunned Sarah, saying,
Our family is elite. You know, high school dropouts and poor people can just go away.
Arriving at the scene, I was filled with unprecedented anger. This anger was like nothing I had ever felt before. As the head of a company supporting 4,000 employees, I blurted out something I shouldn't have. Then your husband is fired. Emily looked at me, startled, and said, What? I'm the CEO of a company employing 4,000 people, including your husband. Sarah, still confused, turned her gaze to me.
I knew you were a CEO, but did you have that many employees?
Emily's focus on education probably made her overlook many things, including her husband's details. Now, with the surroundings becoming noisy, I needed to calm the situation. After the commotion, we explained the situation to the store manager, who rushed over. Sarah and I apologized, and thanks to the manager's kindness, we were allowed to talk in the employee break room. The break room had a large table and several chairs, where we sat down to settle ourselves. Sarah was still working at the register, as it was her shift, but it seemed the employees had just vacated this room, leaving behind scattered items on the table, like beaded dolls, snacks, and study notebooks. Facing Emily across the table, I saw her staring at me with discontent. Can't you understand why I'm angry?
I don't see why. Have I been rude to you in some way?
It seemed Emily genuinely couldn't grasp the reason for my anger. To her, judging someone based on his or her educational background might just be normal. You haven't done anything to me, but I can't overlook the way you've treated Sarah.
Why? You must also wish she wasn't your sister.
Emily looked puzzled, furrowing her brows. I couldn't recall any instance where I might have implied such a thing, always having treated Sarah with care. I've never once thought of Sarah as a burden or an inconvenience.
Even though she's just a high school dropout who can only work a cashier job.
I kept my gaze steady on Emily, standing at the doorway. It was crucial to express my feelings without looking away. Is it only a matter of pride if someone has a good pedigree, and a shame if they don't? Are children only worth something if they're smart?
That's obvious, isn't it?
I wondered if Emily thought the same of her daughter, Linda. The urge to yell back surged within me, but I managed to restrain myself, clenching my fists out of her view. I believe a person's worth isn't determined solely by their education. Sarah's value should be based on her actions and words. Can't you see her for who she is? Emily, looking confused, picked up a beaded doll from the table. She arranged the dolls to illustrate one being excluded, with the others circled around it at a distance.
People without a college diploma are all worthless, in my experience. My respected parents said so it can't be wrong.
While speaking, Emily showed a hint of sadness, flicking away the excluded doll with her finger. Perhaps Emily, having lived longer, had seen various things, possibly including some painful past. But I couldn't accept her total dismissal of Sarah. So, I revealed something I had kept hidden. Understood. So, if that's the case, it's okay for your husband, who was deemed unexceptional and got laid off, to be fired from his current job, right? Hearing this, Emily, startled, questioned me.
Earlier you mentioned something about firing. What did you mean?
Clearly, Emily was unaware of the full picture, focusing solely on educational attainment and not seeing people for who they truly are. I decided to contact her husband, Keith. After a brief phone conversation, I addressed Emily again. Please calm down and listen, Emily. Having received Keith's consent to explain, I had to delve into details. Emily sensed something serious had transpired, her expression growing tense.
Don't rush me. What happened to my husband?
He was laid off from his job a few months ago.
What?
But I hired him in my company. Keith is knowledgeable about cats and was immediately valuable as he had the skills we needed. Emily, visibly shocked, stared blankly at the fallen doll in front of her.
Why would that happen?
It started over something minor, apparently. A fight broke out after Keith was mocked by his boss about you and Linda.
The timid Keith.
I shared Emily's surprise when I first heard about it. Having met Keith a few times, he always seemed mild-mannered. Yet, it turned out he had indeed gotten into a fight.
What could have made him so angry?
I explained to Emily, who was visibly shaken, recalling the details. Linda and you are active in volunteer work, right?
Yes, we participate in fundraising and community cleanups whenever we can.
Despite our differing views, Emily showed kindness through her volunteer work for those in need and the community. But some people don't understand why you would do that.
That's unimaginable to me.
What Linda and Emily were doing was commendable, yet some cite as mere hypocrisy. Keith was told by his boss that you and Linda were probably volunteering just for your own benefit, suggesting you were splurging with the donated money, which angered him. As I detailed what I knew, Emily buried her face in her hands, overwhelmed by the revelation.
It's disheartening that some see kindness and goodwill that way.
Then you understand how I feel. I also can comprehend your perspective on education. Emily looked at me, her expression changing as if she wanted to say something, but eventually remained silent.
I should leave for now. I'm not in the right state of mind to think clearly.
Understood. I nodded in agreement. I was tired too, and pushing my views wouldn't necessarily persuade Emily. Cooling off and reflecting seemed necessary for both of us. Before leaving, Emily put the displaced doll back with the others, forming a harmonious circle. Just as she was about to exit, she turned back to question me.
About what you said earlier. Are you planning to fire my husband?
I spoke out of turn. I have no intention of using my position to do such a thing, so please don't worry.
That's a relief.
With a sigh of relief, Emily left the room, looking exhausted. Days later, while working at the company, I unexpectedly got reunited with the stray puppy I had been concerned about. Keith had found it wandering nearby just a few hours earlier. He came back from a business meeting, and upon seeing it, he couldn't bear to leave it and brought it back.
I apologize for the inconvenience, but I couldn't just leave it.
I was informed by the security at the company entrance that Keith seemed troubled, and upon arrival, I saw him looking apologetic with a playful puppy at his feet. I intended to rescue it too, so don't worry. I was concerned after losing sight of it the other day, so I'm actually grateful to you.
What should we do now?
For now, we should keep it in a room until work ends. Afterward, I'll take it to the vet to check for a microchip, just in case its owner can be identified. While I doubted a stray would have a chip, I knew assumptions were dangerous. A worried owner might be looking for it, so it was important to check.
All right, I'll take responsibility and keep it in my department until then.
Thank you, please do. Back in my office, I worked diligently, preparing to take the puppy to the vet as soon as the workday ended. Finishing work 30 minutes before the usual quitting time was probably a new record for me, thanks to me speeding through my tasks. In the evening, I drove the puppy, now in a cage, to the veterinary clinic. Luckily, my company deals in pet supplies, so having a cage handy turned out to be fortuitous. Upon arrival at the clinic, I talked to the puppy in the cage before getting out of the car. Just hang in there a little longer. I know it's cramped. It was then that I unexpectedly ran into Emily, who had brought her Maine Coon cat for a routine checkup.
I came for a checkup, but what about that puppy?
It was abandoned, so I brought it here to check for a microchip and get it examined.
That sounds like a lot of trouble, especially with your work.
Our conversation, devoid of direct eye contact, carried a somewhat awkward atmosphere as we entered the clinic. Despite my initial confusion, Emily's guidance helped me relay the necessary information at the reception. While waiting in the lobby, Emily spoke up again.
Your company deals with pet supplies, right? That must have come in handy.
Yes, it did. I hope it somehow makes Ken, who's now in heaven, a bit happier.
Ken, did you have a pet before?
Yes, when I was a child. As I elaborated on my past pet, Emily seemed to sniffle slightly, murmuring, "I didn't know that." We fell silent for a while, but Emily occasionally glanced at the cage with a puppy inside. Are you interested? Puppies are cute, though adult dogs have their charm too.
No, I was wondering why you pay so much attention to a mixed breed. It doesn't bring any benefit, after all.
Hearing her words, I internally sighed. I had hoped our supermarket conversation might have led her to understand my viewpoint, but it appeared not. Isn't it sad to choose who to be with based on potential gain or usefulness? Isn't it enough to be together because we like each other? I spoke softly, checking our surroundings. The waiting room had people, but none were close enough to overhear our private conversation. Keith isn't elite, and he was laid off. Aren't you going to leave him?
What are you talking about? I can't do that.
Why not? I thought you wanted to be part of an elite family.
That's...
Seeing Emily struggle for words, I felt a bit relieved. She seemed to understand. She was wrong, but couldn't admit it due to her pride.
I should just divorce my husband, right? That would be better. My decision must be correct. What's wrong with striving to be excellent if it leads to our happiness?
Emily said in a strained voice, desperately trying to convince herself. To me, she appeared vulnerable and pitiful.
People don't even notice someone like me, a high school dropout, so looking down on me seems natural. That's why I struggled, and even repeated a year to go to college and change my final level of education. My effort wasn't wrong.
Emily seemed unable to contain her emotions anymore. As she raised her voice, people around us started to look in our direction.
I'm absolutely right. The wrong ones are you people.
With that, she stormed out of the clinic. Left in her seat, her Maine Coon cat meowed sadly. I couldn't just leave Emily in such a state. Concerned, I contacted Linda and Keith to help search for her. After the puppy's examination, I would join in looking for her. After visiting various places, we finally ended up at the river bank. Keith was the first to find her. He was already comforting a sobbing Emily by the river, which was reassuring.
Emily, I'm sorry. I should have been more aware of your sadness and talked more with you. Was there something in your past? I'm also sorry for not properly conveying the incident when I got laid off.
Afterwards, it seems that Emily and Keith were left alone and talked for about an hour at that spot. I later heard that Emily once cared for an abandoned cat there, secretly looking after it until it tragically died due to some local high schoolers' mischief. Because these kids didn't advance to college and continued causing trouble at the river bank, Emily had become overly concerned with educational backgrounds. However, her talk with Keith seemed to have cleared the air.
I've been terrible to you and Sarah. I'm truly sorry.
It's my fault for not communicating properly with my wife. Please allow me to apologize as well.
Hearing this, both earnestly apologized to Sarah and me. I also shared that Sarah was an apprentice at a well-known restaurant, which, as I expected, surprised Emily. After our discussion, the fact that Linda had given them a serious talking to for causing worry made Emily and Keith laugh tiredly, looking exhausted.
It's the first time I've seen our daughter so angry.
Me too. Linda is not someone to anger, that's for sure.
We might never win against our daughter, huh?
Surprisingly, Emily and I found common ground on this matter. Eventually, things settled down, and Emily, Keith, and Linda gathered at their family home for some quality parent-child time. However, it seemed things were still challenging afterward. Apparently, due to recent events, they had become the subject of local gossip. Emily's behavior at the supermarket and the vet clinic had reached many ears.
That lady over there, I heard she fights with her husband every night. People with a nice facade seem to carry a lot of stress, which is kind of scary.
Exactly. They claim to be an elite family, but their true nature doesn't seem so impressive.
Rumors spread about them being on the brink of divorce or Emily harassing the family she married into out of spite. Linda and I kept denying these rumors, but Emily stopped us.
I'll accept this as the consequence of my actions. Don't worry about it. I plan to work hard and regain trust.
Emily appeared more relieved and had been talking more with Keith, believing they could eventually overcome this challenging situation. During this time, we started keeping a pet. Of course, it was the puppy we rescued at my company. We named him Sam, and though he was quite mischievous, making daily care challenging, watching him grow brought immense joy. You've grown so much, Sam. Keep it up.
I'm looking forward to it.
Sarah seems to be enjoying her time just like us. Although there's still much for her to learn as an apprentice, she has recently gained the trust of the restaurant owner, being entrusted with many menus. Regular customers are now coming specifically for the dishes Sarah makes, and there's anticipation for the day she'll take over the restaurant. Even so, she's taking proper rest on her days off, so it's good that she doesn't seem to be overexerting herself. Despite the various challenges we've faced, the thought of Sarah becoming fully proficient soon is quite moving. Today is a day to play in the park with Sarah, Linda, and Sam. Sam, look, here's the ball. I'm going to throw it.
Don't throw it too far, or Sam will struggle.
Wow, look at him jump.
Watching Sam, who's grown fond of Sarah, charge at her and seeing her fall to the ground covered in dirt made Linda and I burst out laughing. Although our parents and kin are not here, we have these incredibly happy moments with our new family.